Perhaps the central paradox of Buddhist practice is this: how do we strive for progress without becoming attached to the very idea of progress? Many of us come to practice with a desire to grow and improve, but how do we balance that desire, that aspiration, with the philosophy of non-attachment? How do we strive without clinging? How do we make effort without forcing? This paradox is one that many of us struggle with. And so in today's video I want to discuss this paradox of effort in Buddhist practice. Effort is essential on the Buddhist path. Without it, there is no progress. But clinging to effort or obsessing over progress can become a hindrance. It can lead to conceit, frustration, burnout, even regression. So how do we work with this paradox? First, what is right effort? Right effort is the 6th stage along the Eightfold Path, and it has 4 different components. The first is to restrain those unskillful states that have not yet arisen. The second is to work with the mind in ways that make unskillful states less likely to appear in the future. The third is to develop the mind so that skillful states arise in the future. And the fourth is to develop the mind so that we preserve and maintain and develop those skillful states that have already arisen. These aspects of effort form the foundation of mental purification in all Buddhist practice. Now, there is a difference between what we might term right effort and wrong effort. Wrong effort is rooted in egoism, in greed, in kinds of delusion. Wrong effort feels like striving, like pushing ourselves, like trying to prove something to other people or to ourselves, to make ourselves feel better than others in some way, to stop ourselves from feeling worse than others, those kinds of feelings that really don't help us. Right effort, on the other hand, is rooted in mindfulness and wisdom. It's a more spacious kind of state of mind. It's not lazy, and on the other hand, it's not being overexerted. It's a kind of a focused approach without being tense. But this is a continuum between what we might term wrong effort and right effort. We're never going to be perfect in our right effort. So what we should try to do is to be aware of where we are on this continuum from time to time. Are we pushing? Are we striving? Are we trying to prove something to others or to ourselves? Or rather, are we simply letting the progress of our effort continue on its own route? There is indeed a middle way of effort, one that is exemplified by the Buddha's own journey. The Buddha began when he was a youth, spending time in indulgence, sensual indulgence, and he realized that was not the path that he wanted to follow. Then later on, once he left home, he spent a number of years in deep ascetic practices. And it took him, again, years to realize that that also was not the right way to reach enlightenment. And so the upshot of this is that there is a balance, a middle way of effort between these two extremes, and between the extremes of, let's say, laziness and overexertion, that is the right path, the middle path, the right effort that we're trying to find. Second, I want to discuss a little bit of what I would term the paradox of striving. Now, why is striving paradoxical? Any kind of effort that we take, any striving that we may undertake, involves an ideal or an idea of a goal, something towards which we are working. However, attachment to that goal itself can create tension and suffering, basically. And so how can we strive, this is the paradox, how can we strive without this kind of attachment? True progress comes when effort is balanced with equanimity, when we give up attachment to the goals, but rather trust in the process itself. There's a key analogy from the suttas. This is the story of Sona, who was one of the Buddha's most energetic disciples. However, the energy that he put into his practice was unbalanced. And so he realized that his effort was actually causing him restlessness and not getting him to enlightenment. The Buddha realized this and went to talk to Sona. And he gave the simile of what's known as the arched harp in Bhikkhu Sujato's phrase, or the simile of the lute. That is, Sona used to play this instrument when he was younger, and so the Buddha asks him, was playing this harp or this lute, was it possible when the strings were too loose? No, says Sona, you really couldn't play it very well at that point. It didn't make the right sounds. Was it possible to play when the strings were too tight? Again, no. You can't play it well when the strings are too tight. The strings have to be tightened to a middle ground, if you like, a middle tension. And then the arched harp all of a sudden sounds beautiful. Then the Buddha went on to say, in the same way, Sona, when energy is too forceful, it leads to restlessness. When energy is too slack, it leads to laziness. So, Sona, you should focus on energy and serenity, find a balance of the faculties, and learn the pattern of this situation. This is a simple yet a profound simile. How often do we ourselves tighten our own strings too much in order to gain what we think of as perfection, only in order to be let down and frustrated by our own restlessness and tension that we've gotten by tightening things too hard. This is how effort is known as efforting in Buddhism. Efforting is this kind of overexertion in effort, where we feel like we need to prove something to ourselves or prove something to other people so that we can feel better about ourselves. This kind of egoistic striving that really does not help us go in the right direction. The paradox, again, is that true progress only begins when we can really let go of this idea of progress itself, at least in some circumstances. When we can let go of the future and simply focus on our practice right here and right now, letting the future take care of itself. Third, I want to touch on some modern challenges here. Modern society often focuses on productivity, on results, in a kind of winner-takes-all society where we have to be perfect or seem like we're perfect in order to make the grade. And we can often bring that same attitude to our Buddhist practice, where we're obsessively measuring our progress, measuring ourselves against the perceived advances or lack of advances of people near us, striving for perfection, wondering why am I not progressing as quickly as this other person? Or why am I being imperfect in my meditation? Why doesn't my meditation go perfectly every time I sit down and close my eyes? There are signs that we can watch out for to see if our efforts are becoming unbalanced. Are we focused on this idea of progress, comparing ourselves with those that are around us, asking ourselves if we are really perfect in our efforts, trying to tally up scores on some kind of heavenly scoreboard about where we are on our perceived vision of the path? Or are we feeling burned out or frustrated with where we're going? All of these can be indications that our efforts are becoming unbalanced and perhaps need another look. In particular, conceit, or the comparing mind, makes us feel better or worse than others around us appear to us to be. Now I notice I don't say as they really are because we really don't know how they are. However, they may appear to us to be perfect, they may appear to us to have a very bad practice, but it's not our practice, and we don't really know. Nevertheless, that kind of comparing mind, that kind of conceit, that kind of egoism can get in the way. Fourth, I want to discuss some practical strategies for balancing our effort. I think what's important is that we focus on patience, on practicing patience, on an awareness that whatever progress we may happen to have is going to occur over a long period of time. It's not the sort of thing that we're going to see on a day-to-day basis on the whole. It's going to take months or perhaps years. But nevertheless, every time we notice progress, it's something we can celebrate and make a point of celebrating. Progress often feels slow and subtle but nevertheless it's there. We may, for example, notice that we're more patient in our relationships, or that we're less reactive to certain kinds of stress. If we notice this, we can celebrate it and realize that our efforts have not gone in vain. And that kind of awareness, that kind of wise awareness, can keep us going, keep us practicing with a kind of confidence and faith that what we're doing is right, even if it takes a long time. We can always use mindfulness as our guide to investigate the quality of our effort. Is it becoming too strained on the one hand or too lax on the other? If it's becoming too strained, then we can again try to relax around or give up this idea of progress. Simply trust in the process, trust in the practice itself, and let the future be what it will. If, on the other hand, we feel that our practice is becoming too lax, we might attempt a little bit of gentle investigation. What's getting in the way of us? What's causing us to be restless or unfocused? Maybe bringing this kind of interest and curiosity to our effort and our mindfulness can help spark renewed effort on the path. Fifth, in conclusion, the central paradox of Buddhist practice is that effort is essential to progress, and yet attachment to that progress only creates suffering. By practicing with a mindful, balanced effort, we can engage with our practice wholeheartedly while giving up the need to control the outcome. All that said, when we talk about balanced effort, we're not talking about perfect effort. Effort is something that comes and goes. Effort is something that we deal with in the moment, and always adjusting with what we see and how our effort seems to be showing up with us today. Each moment is always an opportunity for us to reset our efforts. So my question to you is, how do you find your effort practicing Buddhism? Do you find yourself overly lax? Do you find yourself overly strained? How do you work with this kind of balance in your own lute strings? If you want to hear more about these 4 aspects of right effort, I did a short series of videos describing them, and I'll leave a link to that series up here on the screen if you haven't seen it or would like to see it again. If you're getting something out of these videos of mine, consider taking a look at my Patreon page, which is linked up here on the screen and down below in the notes, and see if you want to help support the channel and the work that I'm doing. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you in the next video, and meanwhile, all of you, be well.